Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to talk about all the books I'm planning on rereading this year. So the goal is to reread 30 books, and I'm gonna be talking about 21 books in this video. So I have about 9 books that are just free choice. Sometimes during the year, I find myself wanting to read a particular book, so I do wanna give myself leeway for that. Yeah, the first ones I'm gonna talk about are actually series. I started rereading in 2023. I just didn't get around to finishing them. So I'm gonna start with those. The first one is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the last book in her Throne of Glass series. I started my reread for Throne of Glass in 2023. I just didn't get around to finishing it. This is the biggest one. I am planning on rereading it either in February or March. I love this series, but this is the only one. No, that's not true. This and Tower of Dawn were the only ones that I've never reread. And I did really love my reread for Tower of Dawn in 2023, so I very much looking forward to rereading this for the first time. Yeah, Throne of Glass is one of my favorite series of all time. Okay, so then I want to finish the Remnant Chronicles. So I reread the first two, and especially the second one, there were a lot of things I forgot about that one, and I really loved my reread for the second one. And this one, once again, I was planning on rereading it in 2023, but I just didn't get around to it because I really want to reread Dance of Thieves and read Vow of Thieves for the first time this year. So that was actually my plan in 2023, but like I said, I didn't get around to it. So the plan is to reread these two and then finally finish this series by reading Vow of Thieves for the first time. Then I want to really reread the Traitor Queen. So I reread The Bridge Kingdom in 2023, and the plan was to reread this one and then continue on with the series. So that is my plan for 2024 as well. Although I do have to say, she did announce that she's writing Anna's duology, and those books always come out on audiobook first. That is why it took me so long to continue on with this series. Part of me just wants to leave it for now, but I did really love my reread for Bridge Kingdom. So I do at least want to reread this one. It's just a question of whether or not I'm going to continue on with the series, but I guess we'll see. I do want to finish the series eventually, obviously, but I don't like the way she releases them because she releases them on audiobook first for the first half of the year. So that is annoying because I don't listen to audiobooks that much, and especially not fantasy audiobooks. Like, unless it's a reread, I don't listen to those books. So usually it's just that much of a longer wait for me. But yeah, I do want to at least reread this one. And then the last one that is a holdover from 2023 is I want to finish my reread for the Bloodlines series by Rochelle Mead. So I actually started my reread for the Vampire Academy in 2022. And then I finished my reread in 2023, and then I started Bloodlines. I reread the first 3, and now I really want to finish my reread for it. I have been loving this reread. Adrian is one of my favorite male characters. I love him. Let me actually hold this one up. I love him, and I've been loving this reread, so I'm just that much more excited to reread the last 3. I know in the third book, their romance really took off. So I know at least in these last 3, it's gonna focus a lot on their romance, and I'm very excited about that. So very much excited to finish my reread for this series. Okay, now for the newer ones, the ones that aren't part of series or aren't part of series that I started my reread for in 2023. The first one is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So I've only read this book once, and I've been meaning to reread it for a long time now. I never really got around to it. It's not a priority, especially once I start a reread of a series. Usually my priority is to continue on with that reread. So standalones kind of get pushed to the wayside, but I did watch the movie finally last year, and I did enjoy it, and it did remind me how much I love The Hating Game. And I'm very interested because I read The Hating Game at a time where I didn't read a lot of romances. Now, obviously, I read so much more. So I'm just interested to see if I still love this now that I've read so many romances. So very much looking forward to this one. Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. This book I read, let me actually see when I read this one. Yeah, so I read it in 2014, actually, July of 2014 for the first time, and I haven't reread it since, so it has been almost 10 years. It would be funny if I actually did my reread in July of 2024. Okay, so this is a book. When I first heard the premise, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm gonna love this. This is an actual romance between an actual full-blooded brother and sister. But this book just broke me to pieces. I remember thinking about it for years afterward. In fact, I remember thinking about it, just having this pit in my stomach for months after I finished it. I love this book, but it was so heartbreaking. And that just made me scared to reread it because I know the heartbreak that is gonna ensue. But even though I've read this almost 10 years ago, there are scenes in here that are still very vivid in my mind. And I just want to know, does it hold up? And I just want to know if it's still as good as I remember. Yeah, basically just a little bit of the premise. It is, like I said, brother and sister falling in love, but they have such a hard and difficult life because their mother is just the worst mom in the world, and she has 5 children. The 2 oldest are pretty much responsible for taking care of the 3 younger ones. So they are basically their parents, and they are like a team. So they are responsible for their own schoolwork, feeding themselves and taking care of themselves, but also making sure their siblings are getting ready for school, taking care of them, feeding them. They're basically the parental unit for these younger ones. And nobody in the world knows what that's like except for the other ones. So in this book, they are already very close, but like feelings develop between them. And it's just, this is so heartbreaking. And I know, I don't remember if I actually cried while reading this for the first time, but I know with rereads, I always tend to cry with sad books. This will 100% make me cry. So I just need to prepare myself for that, but I do want to reread it. Then I want to do a reread for The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. So basically this is going to be an incentive for me to finish The Mortal Instruments finally. Basically, I'm just going to be reading them in publication order, even though I've already read The Infernal Devices. One of my goals is to finish the Shadowhunter world, and The Mortal Instruments is just not my favorite, but I do want to read it. I do want to finish it to continue on with the rest of the series. So basically what I'm going to do is just read one book in The Infernal Devices and then read one book in The Mortal Instruments, just how she published them, because I believe that is the only way for me to read The Mortal Instruments, to finally finish that series. But the other reason is I do really want to reread this series because I believe I reread this one not too long ago. But my 2 favorites are actually Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess, and I've never reread those. So I just want to reread them and just prove to me that they are some of my favorite books, because I do remember my reread for Clockwork Angel. I loved it still, but I was just a little bit underwhelmed, and I do believe that is because these 2 are really my favorite and not necessarily Clockwork Angel, but I'm very much looking forward to it. And hopefully by the end of 2024, I can finally say that I finally finished The Mortal Instrument with a lot of help from The Infernal Devices. Another blast from the past, another YA one. Let me see when I read this one. Yeah, so Tiger Lily by Jodi Lynn Anderson. I read this one in 2015, and this used to be one of my favorite books of all time, but I never reread it. And I don't know how I feel about it now, because I do believe there are some things about indigenous characters in here. It's about Tiger Lily, obviously. It's a Peter Pan retelling, and this book convinced me that I'm a very big fan of Peter Pan retellings, but I've never loved a Peter Pan retelling as much as I love this one. So I just want to read this and see if it's still as good as I thought it was back then. Hopefully it will be, because I think it's just going to be heartbreaking if it's not. One of the main reasons why I love this book so much is because it deals with it, it was one of the only books that I've read that I related to so much in terms of the unrequited love aspect. Back then in 2015, the only people that I loved was unrequited. So I just remember relating so much to Tiger Lily and her heartbreak and how much she loved Peter Pan and how little he cared about her. I don't know. I do feel like that part is still going to be the part that I will relate to, but it's very sad as well. And I don't know. I just want to see if it's still as good as I remember it being, because if not, that is going to be heartbreaking for me, I do have to say. Then I really want to reread The Duchess Deal. This is my first historical romance, and I did really love it, but I never reread it. Maybe once I reread this one, I will reread the other books in the series, but my main priority is The Duchess Deal. I just remember loving it so much. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's historical romance Beauty and the Beast retelling at that, and I love those. It has been a while since I read it. I believe I read it in 2020. Yeah. So it has been in April of 2020, so it has been almost 4 years since I read this one. And I just really love it. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And I just want to experience this book again. Another one that I read around the same time is Look the Part by Julie E. Ann. This one I mainly want to read because I compare it a lot to Heartless by Elsie Silver, and I just want to reread it to see if that still is the case for me. But I also remember this being one of the romances that I really, really fell in love with in 2020. I just thought this was such a great book, and ever since I read it the first time, I have been meaning to reread it, so it has taken me this long to reread it. Another one of my favorite books, and I say that this is one of my favorite historical romances, is The Viscount Who Loved Me. Especially when I read the second epilogues in 2023, and I read their second epilogue, I just knew that I was gonna reread this book in the future, in the near future. And I believe I wanted to reread it in 2023. I just, once again, didn't get around to it. So 2024 it is. I really love this couple. I really love this book. This book is one of the reasons why I love the Bridgerton so much. It's a large part because of Anthony and Kate. This is so great. And I just want to remind myself how great it is. And I want to really see if it's actually a favorite. And I want to see if Anthony is one of my book boyfriends, because when I did my list, only one historical romance hero made it on there, and it wasn't Anthony. So I just want to see if once I do my reread, he'll make it on my book boyfriends list. I just really love it, and I cannot wait to reread this one. Another historical romance I really want to reread is The Secret. Mainly the reason is I want to continue on with the series. There's 2 other books in this series. I know it's a romance series. You don't necessarily have to reread this book, but I remember really loving it, but right now there's a lot I forgot about it too, and I just want to immerse myself in this Scottish world again. And I do believe that once I reread this one and continue on, I'm gonna love those characters that much more because I remember them, as opposed to if I just start reading the second book now and having forgotten a lot about these characters. Another one I want to read because the sequel is going to come out is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. TJ Klune is one of my favorite authors, and this one I really loved. And there's a sequel coming out this year, so I really definitely want to reread this one. One reason because I just want to read about these characters again and these children, but also as an excuse because I just want these characters vividly in my mind before continuing on. Let me actually see when the second one comes out. So it's called Somewhere Beyond the Sea, and it comes out in September. So I definitely want to do a reread for this one before September. Another one I want to reread to continue on is The Dare by Harley LaRue. So this is not going to take me any time because it's only, it's less than 150 pages. It's a novella. I want to reread it because I really love this novella. It's one of my favorite novellas, but also I really want to read The Losers. I know I can start those 2 books without necessarily rereading this one because I know the basic premise, but it's just a good excuse for me to reread this one because I really, really want to reread this one, but I also want to continue on with The Losers, so very much looking forward to this one. 2 more, and these are the most recent reads I had. The first one is Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. So this one I read at the end of 2022, and I remember there was a time in the first half of 2023 where I thought about this book almost daily. I fell in love with this story, and I knew that I wanted to reread this as soon as I could. And I felt like in 2023 it was just too fast for me to reread this, although I could have reread it, it was fine. But now I just cannot hold myself back from rereading it. I definitely will reread it in 2024, and I'm gonna have the best time doing it. And what I knew I was already basically spoiled for the twist in this book, but I wasn't 100% sure. And now that I am sure, I am interested to see the groundwork and to see if there were hints dropped before the reveal is actually happening. So that is also something I'm very much looking forward to. And last but most certainly not least is a book that I read in 2023, but it's my favorite book. It's The Right Move. Out of all of them, this has the lowest priority, but I just love this book so much, and I just want to reread this book every single year. So why not start with 2024? I really love this book. Any excuse to reread this, I'm just gonna put it on my list. If I don't get around to it, it's fine, because obviously I do still remember a lot about it, but I just fell in love with this book and I just deserve happiness, and this book is 100% gonna provide that. So these are the ones that are very set in stone. I am planning on reading at least 20 of them. And then, like I said, I still have room for 9 more. And I'm just gonna not force myself. If I read less than 30, that is fine too, but I do love rereading and I do want to make time to do so. So yes, these are all the books that I am definitely planning on rereading. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've read any of them or what your thoughts were. And I really want to know about a book that you reread that definitely held up, but also a book that you reread that didn't hold up. I would really love to know that. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day and I'll talk to you later. Bye.